Every watercolor painting has 4 or 5 moments where most painters copy what they see. This is exactly why the results look flat. The fix isn't a better brush or new paints, it's learning to make deliberate decisions rather than defaulting to the reference photo. In this video, I'm going to show you what those decisions look like as I paint this father and son scene as part of a gallery series I'm building. Every time I say, do this, or ask you a question, that's the moment. Make these calls and your paintings will improve immediately. Let's get into it. This is painting number 2 in a series of 24 paintings I'm building specifically to get into a gallery. Galleries don't just hang pretty pictures, they look for a body of work with consistent vision and professional execution. Every painting in this series has to meet that standard, and this one has to earn its place. The reference photos here, the line drawing is downloadable in the description. I made one change to the composition. I added snow-capped mountains that aren't in the photo because the right side needed more visual interest. Here's a reference photo for the snow-capped mountains. To get started, ask yourself, should I paint the sky as it is in the photo or do something different? Many artists paint the sky exactly as it is in the reference photo, but think about it. Will that work with the center of interest? Will it support the center of interest, or will it compete with it? Sometimes a more dramatic sky, such as adding cirrus clouds or puffy clouds, can set a different atmosphere and add to the painting. In this particular case, I decided to paint the sky cloudless, but emphasize the blueness of the sky on the right because it establishes the right kind of afternoon light and won't compete with the subject. To pull this off, I'll paint a sideways gradient wash. Here's the problem. I know this paper is going to dry quickly, and that's going to make my gradient wash fail. To get around that, I laid in clean water over the entire sky first. Working down the page, I'll start to add the mountains. Do we wait for the sky to dry completely, or to keep the painting unified, attempt the mountains while the sky is wet? I chose to paint wet into wet because I was going for that unified look. It immediately went wrong. See how the paint is bleeding? Here's what I did to save it, and why I'd make that same call again. Use a damp brush to mop up that stray paint, but I do it again to ensure the shapes are connected. I must wait for those first mountains to dry before I can paint in any of the other mountains. What can I work on while they dry? I can safely work on the flowers and grasses. Now I need to decide whether to paint in the yellow flowers while the sky is wet, damp, or dry. I'll get too much of a bleed if the sky is wet. But with dry paper, the flowers will be very sharp and have too much detail for where they are in the composition. With a damp surface, the dots of paint will spread a little bit and might even produce some jagged edges, which will work well with the flower petals. At the same time, the flowers need to be connected to their stems or they won't look realistic. The problem here is how to suggest some flowers and grasses while keeping the shapes connected. You might have noticed this scraggly brush I'm painting with. Let me explain. Because we're painting flowers, most painters reach for a small brush. They think there are a lot of flowers alongside the grass and that means thin lines, so I need a small brush. Well, that small brush will cause problems by preventing the flow of watercolor. This $2 chip brush from the hardware store creates a broken organic edge that allows the watercolor to flow that a $50 sable brush will never give you when painting grass because the sable is too even. This brush has uneven bristles, and right now that's exactly what I need. The watercolor flows and I can add in darker values wet into wet. See how quickly I can brush in the flowers and the grass while varying the darkness or value. Remember to do this. Start wet on dry, then switch wet into wet to get the pigments to blend on the paper. It's really amazing how this $2 chip brush lets you paint this in with texture and quite quickly. While the grass I just painted is wet, I'll work on more of the mountains. Now, many painters just paint a flat color for shapes like this. For more depth, use a base gray, then drop in raw umber and a bluer gray into the wash directly on the paper. See how the varied color and tone adds dimension? But now we need these to work with the snow-capped mountains and create a sense of distance. How do we make the snow-capped mountains appear three-dimensional? Many artists paint the same value on both sides of the snow-capped mountains, and the result is flat. Do this instead. Darker cobalt blue on the right and lighter cobalt blue on the left because the light source is on the left. Now that the grass is dry and the closest mountains are dry, we can tackle the water. Most artists will simply paint exactly what we see in the reference photo, a monotone body of water, which will give a flat, dull result. Instead, do this. Make the water sparkling using a dry brush technique that skips over the surface of the paper. This is best achieved with a strong mixture of cobalt blue plus raw umber. See how the water appears to reflect the sunlight? That's what an artistic decision can give you, extra energy in your painting. What else does this strong light suggest in this painting? It confirms where the source of light is coming from that we'll use when we paint the man and his son. I'll start with the father, but each figure has elements in common: the head, the body, the clothing, the legs. What are the potential pitfalls here? Not paying attention to the highlights on their heads and painting over the entire shapes of their heads. Do this. Switch to a smaller round brush to control the shapes more precisely and preserve those highlights. I'm using a combination of cobalt blue and raw umber for his ball cap, and I'll use a light value of raw umber for his face. Watch how I paint the shape of his ball cap and preserve the shapes and highlights. For his vest, I'm using the same cobalt blue mixture, but it still reads blue. And for his jeans, I'm using a darker combination of cobalt blue and raw umber to make a dull blue jean color. While his ball cap is still wet from the first layer, I'm adding in raw umber, then painting in raw umber mixed with a little burnt sienna on his face so it looks like it's in shadow. Again, I'm being careful about the highlights on the boy's hair. You can see these kinds of details and more in my live paint-alongs every Saturday. You watch in real time, ask questions while I work, and get feedback on your own paintings the same day. That's the full version of what you're seeing here. The link is in the description, and the first week is on me. To paint the boy's sweatshirt, I'm using a watered-down mixture of perylene maroon. And then, while it's still wet, I'm going directly into his pants. Those colors will bleed, but that helps the figures seem unified. You might think this painting is nearly finished, but is it really? Many people think of watercolor as light and not as deep and dark as oils and acrylics, so they think, well, except for the man's shirt, they're pretty much finished at this point. But stopping here is the amateur decision. Recognizing that deeper values are needed to build depth in this painting is the professional move. One that I can't forget if I'm going to include this painting in the series for the gallery. Do this. Squint at your reference photo and that will help you see the darkest values and the lightest values. Now squint at your painting. Does it look the same? If not, you need more values. You're looking for a range of values like this. This is what I saw when I went to a gallery last week. These paintings were wonderful. They all had a broad range of values. Here we can see my figures definitely need more value. I'm going to use the same colors that I used before. Cobalt blue plus raw umber for the man's vest. I'm going to use perylene maroon for the boy's sweatshirt and the man's shirt. But I'm going to dilute them a lot less. They're going to be a lot deeper. That's how I'm going to make them darker. Also, the fear of overworking a painting causes many artists to stop too soon, with figures especially. Stopping too soon leaves them flat and unconvincing. Just because it's watercolor doesn't mean you can't go dark. Do this. Paint the deep values and shadows on the figures and watch how they seem to rise out of the paper the moment you anchor them with that high contrast. I'll cover more about how not to overwork a watercolor in the third painting in this series. This boy is 18 months old. If I don't get the roundness of his cheeks right, he'll look like a miniature adult. How to mix the colors for his hair and face? I'm using light raw umber for his hair, transitioning to burnt sienna for his face. The trick here is to make the hair darker than his face while using raw umber and burnt sienna. A little more burnt sienna on his cheeks brings out that roundness in his face. Some stronger perylene maroon on the boy's sweatshirt gives it the right value while preserving the highlights. Often painters use a flat wash of green for the grass. The color says grass, but it looks too even. No blades, no depth, no life. Do this. Switch to a needlepoint brush and use darker values to pull out the individual grass details in certain places, not everywhere. You want to indicate, not state. This particular brush is floppy and makes uneven marks, which are what you see in nature. The grass still needs more texture, so I did this. Spattered green paint across the foreground and immediately hit the sky by mistake. My first instinct was to turn them into birds, which I tried, and they blurred. Total failure. Well, then I stepped back and looked again. They weren't birds for sure. They were insects hovering around the father and son on a warm afternoon. I liked it much better than what I had planned. To really make the viewer's eye travel across the painting, I decided I would add in the white flowers we see in the reference photo. I spattered Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed-proof white ink for those flowers. This painting is done. Whether it belongs on a gallery wall, I genuinely don't know yet. Painting number 3 in this series is where it gets harder. A storm rolls up on a row of beach houses. If you want to see whether I can pull it off, subscribe and you'll know when it drops. If you're interested in the uncut version of this video, sign up at paintingwithpeggy.com. The link is in the description. I'll see you in the next one.